Chosen one, pause for a moment and really listen. Right now, in this exact second, while you're sitting with that heavy feeling in your chest, replaying every reason you think you've fallen short, God's attention is fixed on you, and what he sees would undo you in the best way. Not because he's disappointed, but because he's deeply, overwhelmingly pleased. He's proud of the tired version of you, the worn-out one, the version that whispered, "I don't know how much longer I can keep going," and almost scrolled past this, because hope felt expensive. This version matters more than you realize. Here's the problem: you can't see what's happened to you. Not clearly. Transformation has a blind spot. It's like trying to see your own face without a mirror. You've been staring at your mistakes, replaying your missteps, cataloging everything that didn't work. Meanwhile, God has been watching your character form. You've been counting losses, he's been witnessing becoming. You've been focused on what didn't happen, while he's been celebrating who you turned into while waiting. And I know your mind is already pushing back, saying, "But you don't know what I've done." Stop. He knows. All of it, and he's still proud right now. In the next few minutes, I'm going to be that mirror for you. I'm going to reflect back what's been forming in your blind spot. The growth you lived through but couldn't measure. The reason your attention was pulled here at this exact moment. This isn't coincidence. You're one realization away from your entire story finally making sense. And that realization begins here. You already became who he needed. You're not waiting to qualify. You're already standing in it. You just haven't seen it yet. Before we go further, let me ask you to notice something. If something inside you just whispered, "This is for me," don't ignore that. That's recognition. That's your spirit responding to truth. Stay with this. Don't rush ahead, because what you're about to receive isn't just encouragement, it's alignment. And alignment always costs something. It costs excuses. It costs the comfort of staying small. It costs the story that says, "I'm not ready yet." Once you see yourself the way God sees you, you can't pretend you didn't. Are you willing to let go of what's been keeping you hidden? You didn't stumble onto this message. This message found you, not because of timing or chance, but because the Spirit redirected you here. There's something he's been saying to you for a while now, and you've been mishearing it. You thought the message was try harder, but it was actually you've already become. You thought you were waiting for approval, but heaven has been celebrating you quietly. You've been asking for proof you're on the right path, while the proof has been that you're still here, still seeking, still believing there's more. That persistence is the sign. Think about where you were just before this started. Maybe you're alone in a quiet room while the world sleeps. Maybe you're sitting in your car, stealing a moment of silence during a busy day. Maybe you're somewhere you don't want to be, feeling misunderstood and unseen. Wherever you are, something shifted right before you clicked. A subtle pull. A recognition you couldn't explain. That wasn't random, that was orchestration. And when God is about to move, he always sends a signal first, an interruption that disrupts your routine. This is yours. But let me be honest with you. What you're about to see will demand something in return. Once clarity comes, you can't hide behind confusion anymore. Once you understand that God sees strength where you saw weakness, you lose the right to keep calling yourself unqualified. Seeing yourself clearly removes the safety of smallness. And that's uncomfortable. But clarity is always kinder than illusion. So let's name what's been happening to you. Because once it has a name, it loses power. You've been living with something called achievement blindness. It means you can't perceive your own growth. Your vision has been trained by pain to scan for what's wrong. Disappointment taught your eyes to hunt for flaws. So when you look at yourself, all you see are gaps and glitches. And here's the paradox: the deeper the transformation, the harder it is to detect. Real change doesn't announce itself. It happens quietly, beneath the surface, in places metrics can't reach, in how you respond now, in what you no longer do, in what no longer controls you. God sees those invisible shifts. You don't. And that's why I need to walk you through them. There are changes that have already happened inside you that heaven is celebrating while you're still doubting. As I describe them, don't analyze. Just notice your body. When one lands, you'll feel it. A tightening in your chest, a lump in your throat. Tears you didn't plan. That's not emotion, that's recognition. Your spirit knows before your mind catches up. The first change is this: you learned how to sit in silence without collapsing. Not peaceful silence, waiting silence. The kind that used to scare you. The moments when you prayed and heard nothing back, when answers didn't come, and it felt like God stepped away. That silence used to trigger panic. You'd overthink, overdo, overfill the quiet, because emptiness felt like abandonment. But something shifted. One day, you stayed. You didn't spiral. You didn't run. Your body stayed calm. And you realized, I can be here and survive. That's not small. That's spiritual maturity. Silence is where faith gets refined. Anyone can trust God when everything is loud and clear. But learning to rest when He's quiet, to trust presence without reassurance, that's depth. And you didn't learn that from a teaching. You learned it through repetition. Every time you stayed instead of escaping, you built a new capacity. God looks at that version of you and says, that's exactly who I needed, someone who trusts me even when they can't feel me. The second change is what you did with your pain. You didn't waste it. You could have hardened. You had every reason to. Betrayal, rejection, abandonment, you earned the right to close off. And there were moments when bitterness felt justified, when resentment felt safer than hope. But somewhere along the way, you chose differently. You let pain refine you instead of define you. You didn't turn your wounds into weapons. You turned them into wisdom. Now, when someone comes to you carrying a pain you recognize, you don't rush to fix them. You don't lecture. You sit with them. Your presence says, I've been there. And that shared understanding becomes healing. That's transformation. Most people either bury their pain or pass it on. You transformed it into compassion. God calls that sacred work. Even if you still feel broken in places, don't miss what you've already become. The third change is this: you still chose God when everything hurt. There was a moment when logic screamed that faith was pointless, when circumstances contradicted every promise. And yet, through tears or exhaustion, you whispered gratitude, not because it made sense, but because you trusted His character more than your reality. That kind of worship isn't performance, it's surrender. It's choosing trust without evidence. Heaven pays attention to that. God saw the battle in your mind, the part of you that wanted to quit, and the part that refused to let go. And He called that faith. These first three changes alone reveal a transformation you didn't manufacture. It happened through walking, not striving, and there's more. Changes you thought were weaknesses that God calls strengths. But before we continue, understand this: if you leave now, you'll have insight. If you stay, you'll have activation, because clarity without embodiment fades. Stay with this. The fourth change is about boundaries. You learned to say no without drowning in guilt. You used to overextend yourself because saying no felt like failure, like selfishness, like abandoning people. So you emptied yourself and resented it, then felt ashamed for resenting it. But something changed. One day you paused. You honored your limits. And nothing fell apart. You realized boundaries aren't rejection, they're stewardship. God celebrates that wisdom. The fifth change is rare. You stayed soft in a hard world. Pain usually makes people cold. You had every reason to close your heart, but you didn't. You grew discernment without losing tenderness, strength without cynicism. That balance is supernatural. Staying open after being hurt isn't weakness, it's courage. God values that deeply. The sixth change might surprise you. You got angry at God, and that didn't disqualify you. It proved relationship. You didn't walk away. You wrestled. You questioned. You cared enough to demand answers. That's intimacy, not rebellion. God can handle your honesty. He prefers it over performance. And the seventh change, the one no one sees, is your private worship. The quiet thank yous, the whispered trust in ordinary moments. Worship without an audience, that's real faith. God sees it all, and He's proud. So hear this clearly: God's pride isn't about your achievements. It's about your process, not your arrival, but your persistence. You're still here, still trusting, still walking. That's why heaven celebrates you now, not later. And here's the truth you might be resisting. Part of you is afraid to believe this, because if God is already proud, you lose your excuses. You can't hide behind not ready, and that responsibility feels heavy. But fear isn't disqualification, it's readiness. Only people who understand the weight of calling feel that fear. You're not becoming worthy. You're being revealed. You're not creating a new identity. You're recovering your original one. The version of you that existed before pain, before shame, before the world told you to shrink. God isn't fixing you. He's unveiling you.